Coming up in this video, when I saw a figure moving quick up somewhere far off, I hit the brakes hard, and as the truck dialed back near a stop, I could better recognize the elements of this individual practically remaining in the street. Being a truck driver is one of the hardest jobs in the world. So in this video we will be seeing trucker horror stories and scary truck stories. Before finding an office line of work in the city, I was a UPS driver for quite a long time. It was significant cash and I delighted in it for the most part. It had its minutes. However, it was 2011. I'd been out of school for 2 years. I was working 11 to 7 on a Friday. Was the coldest time of the year. So it was dim by like 5 o'clock. I wasn't precisely living in Palm Springs. Possibly I was living in an unassuming community in North Carolina. I would instead not call it ghetto, or then again, salami, yet it was anything but a delightful region. At everything, I did conveyances in that equivalent town all the time. The lodging circumstance in this town was unusual. A few squares would have lines of houses and trailer homes separated excessively far away from one another, while different yards were simply totally forsaken. This made for fewer conveyances out and out because the places were so scattered and not even close to one another that it took more time than, say, a normal rural or metropolitan local area. Conveyances were generally set apart on the guide, so I could take a more essential course rather than simply driving all around the place nighttime in long stretches of conveyances all around a range of. In any event, 3 unique humble communities, I began heading down one of those roads I'd referenced a few seconds ago. Scattered trailer homes and tiny houses on one side, timberlands on the opposite side. It's a bit past 6 p.m. also. My shift is winding down with not such a large number of conveyances left. There was one house on this square. A bundle was to be finished. The paperwork for it, meaning I couldn't simply leave it on the stoop. I pulled up before the house, went to the rear of the truck, and pulled out one of the greatest and heaviest boxes of the day. There was some sort of little metal pieces knocking around in the box, bunches of them. I was unable to attempt to speculate on what could be inside. My work was simply to drag the thing to the front entryway of the trailer home. That is precisely the very thing I did. There was no doorbell on this home, so I needed to thump. However, hey guys, before you keep watching the video, I see a lot of you are not subscribed to the channel. So if you enjoyed the content and you want to help us to grow, please consider subscribing to achieve our goal of 100 subscribers. Thank you. There was no doorbell on this home, so I needed to thump. However, there were no lights on in there. I didn't see a vehicle out front, so I was trusting someone was home. I pounded a couple more times than I saw the shades do. One of the windows moves and strides come to the entryway. Then there was a long stop, a dubious and pointlessly prolonged interruption before the entrance at last aired out. Some more seasoned lady jabbed her head out all at the point when I said she had a bundle to sign. She opened the entryway, foliate. She appeared to be restless as I asked her to sign the gadget. She did so. It was a messy mark. She let me know I want to help her convey the crate into her room. I calculated that would be the case the second I ventured into the trailer home. He got an immense whiff of some sort of smell. You know how each house has a particular smell, whether it be fantastic or terrible. Well, this home sensed terrible. I don't have the foggiest idea what it was she was passing on me. To a back, the area behind the minuscule lounge space. She took me to a thin lobby where I battled to convey the container. Then, at that point, she carried me to an entryway. She opened the entryway and advised me to move the case into the storm toward the rear of the room. I requested that she flick on the light. She said the light didn't work. It was straight away to completely dark in there. The primary source of light being the light from the living room leaking a few doors down into the room. I could see the very smallest some to explore the crate within the room. As a person near the storeroom, I saw somebody remaining toward the side of the storage room. I knew for specific it was an individual as a result of the state of framework, and there was development. There was not an apparent reason for this. The individual was stowing away from me, holding up. I left the case where it was and strolled past the lady and said, "Have the pleasant day." She began to shout at me to return and help her. and she went as far as to call me a piece of. I didn't have the foggiest idea what this lady and whoever was in that storeroom were anticipating doing, and I would have instead not kept close by to figure out what happened with my shift, and I returned home that evening and, in this way, started my quest for new employment for a fresher, better work. Hi guys, before you keep watching the video, if you want to send a personal true horror story of yours, please send it to me on my email, and I will contact you for sure. Also, don't forget to keep watching your video. I've been a driver of shifting organizations for quite some time. A long time back, I was working for a distribution center organization, doing shipments. I generally drove the semi. On February 2nd, it was a cool Monday, so the week was simply beginning and a lot of burdens required to be sent. So I was attempting to bang it hard and fast rapidly. I began driving at 3 p.m. Furthermore, expected on getting to an objective that very evening. I didn't need to pull off on the street someplace to rest. I did around 5 over as far as possible after 12, which is quick for a semi. I was beginning to feel exceptionally drained. However, the objective was under an hour away and I figured I could do it. My eyes were getting dry. Also, turning into a chore was beginning. Just to keep them open, I sprinkled a few glasses of water on my hand and afterwards scoured it all over. It helped a smidgen. It was that just to awaken me. My vehicle on this street at this hour, so adjacent to my headlights, the street was dull. I came to taste my water and nearly letting it out when I saw a figure moving quick up somewhere far off. I hit the brakes hard, and as the truck dialed back near a stop, I could better recognize the elements of this individual practically remaining in the street. He was by all accounts wearing all dark, with a dark scarf of some sort folded over his neck, and he had the unnaturally lengthy neck. I know it's a bizarre thing to get on, yet it was practically freaky looking. His face itself, anyway, was a finished haze. They could make out any elements as my truck eased back down and drew nearer to this baffling man. I was going to lower the window to inquire as to whether he wanted a ride. However, he just gone to one side and shot into the woods. I didn't require an additional second to pause and consider it. I recently squeezed on the gas pedal once more and continued on, notwithstanding the way that freaky it was. I was in a rush. It wasn't even until around 25 seconds after that my heart truly began dashing from the taking. Furthermore, how weird it truly was, perhaps 5 minutes after the fact I had the option to deal with it. Yet very much like that, something different occurred as I had returned to my cruising speed. I saw something stumble into the road before me. At first looked like a major creature. However, as I drove nearer, it crossed into the forest. I understood. It seems to be someone else. I didn't indeed even tapping on the brakes this time. I just continued onward, and I continued to roam down the street, perhaps hurrying up a minimal, all the more since I was beginning to get gone nuts and needed to get there quicker. An additional couple of moments went by with nothing occurring anyway. I was getting progressively drained, and now and again, 2:46, I was in any event steering into the other lane. Somewhat 40 minutes or so left in the drive, and I couldn't say whether I would be able to make it any longer. I began searching for good places to pull over and park for the night. There was at last somewhat opening on the roadside made of rock. I presume fate has smiled down from heaven, a tiny bit of stopping, rest stop sort of thing. I pulled the semi into it. I stopped it and reclined and rested my eyes. I nodded off for not, indeed, even an hour, just to awaken out of no place to the dimness. I don't realize what awakened me. However, as I looked outside through the windshield, something in my stomach was advising me to turn on the headlights. Thus I flicked the handle and illuminates lit the encompassing region in front of my truck. There was an in thing front of the truck. However, a man, that is a man with the dark scarf I'd seen prior, remaining out and about. Presently, I could see his face much more clear. He had an extremely wide grin and his eyes were open, as wide as could be expected, and he looked right at me through the windshield. I turned the truck on and hauled it out of that little clearing as best as conceivable. I didn't have the foggiest idea what to think. How is it that he could have strolled 10 miles from where I had seen him last? I didn't stop again that evening until I made it to my objective. From that point, I nodded off in the parking garage and got up early the next morning. Presently, The main coherent clarification I could consider is that my psyche was playing stunts on me since I had been seeing bizarre things the entire night. I've never known about fantasy being so striking. What's more unnerving is the part that still truly confounds and panics me. I have been a transporter since I was 23. And I've done a ton of night drives. What's more, I had my reasonable part of odd encounters. I did conveyances for a number of various sorts of organizations. Frequently, I'd need to drive across the state to make shipments to the getting organizations or stores. One day, I needed to go in a real sense from one side of California to the next to convey a trailer brimming with wooden furniture things. A significant part of the drive was through open desert streets, being I was going hours and I previously had a poor start to the day, so I knew a more significant part of my drive would be uninformed given the idea of these desert streets around evening time, how straight they are and how little traffic is there. It implied I could push the truck a bit quicker than I would on different streets. This meant that when I saw the glimmering back lights of a vehicle in the distance, I needed to hit the brakes some extra hard to halt the truck. When I at last pulled up behind the car, it was an old Chevy Impala stopped on the street in the desert soil. It had its risks. I escaped my truck due to the course. I must be a great Samaritan, and I check assuming that they required help. I strolled over to the vehicle and tapped on the window just to get no sort of the reaction. I twisted down a little to look into the car through the colored window. There didn't appear to be anybody sitting inside. I did likewise for all 3 different seats and could affirm there wasn't anybody in the vehicle, so I watched out into the calm, dull, however, the desert that the street went through. I was unable to see any further than perhaps 20 yards before me. I was feeling exceptionally accommodating this night for the reason, so I returned to my truck, got an electric lamp from the toolkit that sat under the front seat. It was an uncompromising strategic electric light that was so brilliant it would hurt your eyes to gaze straight toward it. When I turned it on, it uncovered what seemed, by all accounts, to be an deserted corner store on the street. I hadn't seen it before. I surmised the explanation I didn't acknowledge it before was because the entirety top off or stopping region was fundamentally the soil. There wasn't substantial there, or additionally just 2 service stations behind them was a little structure, presumably an old speedy stop store at one point. It would appear to be legit that whoever's vehicle was around there would be there. I went to the front entryway, which was for all time stuck open, and the electric lamp illuminated a respectable part of the room. Inside it was what I thought a enormous corner shop. You'd find it quite a large number service stations, or possibly it used to be. It was no big surprise it didn't keep going on the street like this. However, I shouted to let anyone knows about my presence and that I was there to help. There was the smallest piece of reverberation in the room, which gave me chills for reasons unknown. Then I heard something, presumably a shoe scratched against the floor on the contrary side of the room behind a couple retires that were presumably once loaded up with nibble things and beverages. I called out by offering my assistance on the off chance that it was required. I heard a profound, weighty murmur saying I grasped what was told right away. However, I didn't get the reason why whoever said it would agree that I likewise heard weighty relaxing in one corner of the room. It was sufficient to cause me to get the hellfire out of there in a rush on my stroll back to my truck. This is what I heard, and there must be at least 5 seconds of disarray. I didn't know whether what I was hearing was genuine or not, assuming that even appears to be legit. I hurried to my truck and called 911 because to be legitimate, I was too frightened to even consider returning in that building. They requested a definite area and I was unable to let them know. All I could say was that I was by a deserted corner store on some road in the desert. They requested that I remain available so I could portray my area better. However, unexpectedly the vehicle before me turned on, began speeding down the desert street. I didn't see him get into his vehicle, so dim, and I was so occupied by the call. I ran once more it was still into work to check whether anyone there while keeping 911 on the line. I went to the back area where I'd heard the voice and breathing, and I was humiliated to see a new pool of blood on the floor. I could hardly comprehend what. Nothing surprising. Really, I made sense up into the telephone that I accepted I just found a wrongdoing. The scene, in the long run, they had the option to send a lot of state officers to the scene. They asked me for any data I could give tag number what the suspect seemed to be something I thought happened. All I said was it was a dark Chevy Impala and I heard a man advise me to get out before attending a lady shouting as they left the working there was nobody abandoned. In any case, I had a couple of thoughts about what could have happened. I'm sure the state police took some blood tests and so forth. However, I couldn't be a substantially more help. Despicably, I didn't have a dashcam by then to get the permit plate number. However, in a real sense, the following week, I introduced the dashcam into my allocated. A truck was only one of those once in a blue moon encounters that will continuously torment me. Enough is enough for today, guys. Bye.